There's two ways to learn: being taught and self teaching. I made a Facebook post about this just now. A good teacher has a method that works very well, basically guaranteed results for most people, in that it fits most people, and in those people, it guarantees results. A masterful teacher has a method that's perfect, and so it guarantees results for anyone who does it. And then there's self teaching, there's autodidactism. I came upon this in college. I had a big heart awakening. And by the time I was 22, I had changed a lot over the past few years. So I had seen myself evolve and go through completely different people. And changing into essentially three different people from 19 to 22, or in developmental psychology terms, like in spiral dynamics integral, to be blue, um, or no, it'd be early orange to early green, and then a peak experience being yellow for a small amount of time, then back to green. I got to be a participant and a leader of my own evolution and my own developing myself. Because I was doing this to myself. I was cultivating myself. It wasn't by accident. It wasn't life transitions. It was me doing this. Except one thing that did facilitate a lot is anytime I'd get sober from weed. I was smoking every day. I'd be stagnant, and I'd get sober and launch off. And I got to see that the way I learned my lessons, no one could have taught me. The way I figured stuff out. And it was also energetic. It wasn't just mental figuring out. It was like with psychedelics. Oh, getting over sickness. I was doing energetic movements, and in college being really social, and I'm not a very socially oriented person. And so there was so much growth edge there. And I was constantly out of my comfort zone. And I got to see what it's like, oh, if I have this fear in my belly or anxiety, and there's no reason to, right? I'm in a party and it's like, there's no reason to. I could just get over it. And sort of getting over it and seeing how I did that with my energy, with that fear, it's like energetic surgery almost. And we develop capabilities when needed. Um, there's this quote: "Necessity is the mother of all invention." Right? When I was in my out of my comfort zone, and like I was facing it, like I needed friends. I didn't want to be alone. I didn't have high school friends, so yeah, I did what I had to do. And there's this key that I was in such a unique set of circumstances, as is everyone in their own unique set of circumstances. There's no teaching I could have consumed, because I remember getting into self help a bit later on and reading all these, or not reading, but coming across all these books. And they all were like teachings, and I'm like, I saw all of them as so low value to me compared to what I had figured out for myself. And if I hadn't figured that out and I had come across that book, I would have been fooled by the book. Because these books, these teachers in the personal development and later on found out spirituality, these are personal realms. These aren't about the world. And no one knows what my landscape is inside. Yes, I'm a human and we have commonalities. And no one knows exactly where I'm at. And so this is the issue is the teaching that we're consuming doesn't know where we're at. And the right teaching at, can come at the wrong time. And if a good teaching comes at the wrong time, it's the wrong teaching and it's a waste of time. It's deluding someone, it's wasting their energy, it's getting them off track and it's confusing them. And it's gaslighting them. That's the result. And of course, when someone gets their time, when someone wastes their own time, when someone spins their wheels, when someone puts in energy and effort and doesn't get results, that triggers shame, fear, panic, all sorts of negative beliefs. So it's important to strike true when you strike. I teach guitar and I emphasize it's the same thing. It's if you're going to practice, practice perfectly. Do not, and same thing with fitness, do not have bad reps. I did this when I taught myself handstands um, many years ago. I saw, okay, I've barely ever done a handstand in my life. My handstands are absolutely awful. I can't stay up there. It looks terrible. I'm going to practice, and my goal is to get it. Therefore, I'm not going to have a single bad rep. So I practiced on the wall for months and months and months, timing myself many times a week before I even attempted a freestanding one. Because I wasn't willing to train my nervous system with something that I didn't want it to do. I didn't want to get better at bad handstands. I wanted to get better at good handstands. So it's the same with personal development and consuming teachings. If I pick up a book, watch a YouTube video, and like, let's see if this helps me, I'm filling my system with trash. Doesn't matter what the teaching is. It absolutely doesn't matter. Let's see what it does for me. If I'm in the gym, I put some weight on the bar and I'm like, let's see how many I can do. Let's see if I can play this solo that I've been practicing on guitar. We will always underperform. And that's the best case. The worst case is that we do a terrible job. And when it comes to learning and being taught by a teacher, let's see if their teaching works for me. What's happening is we're completely out of tune with where we're at. And worse, we're not even we don't even hold any intention to be in tune. And worse, that creates this meta belief that um, the answers are somehow outside of me. The answers to my situation are outside of me. How is that even possible? If I have a situation inside myself that I'm trying to do something with, 100% of my attention belongs in the location of the situation. 100% of my attention belongs at the situation. No teacher knows where I'm at in my psychology, in my life story. Even if they do, they don't know what, even if they do with one issue, like even if we talked about one issue, they don't know the landscape of the rest of my psyche. They don't know what apple is about to fall, what fruit, like they don't know what dam is about to break. They don't know what my ripeness is in different areas of my being. And neither do I, but I'm the only one that can know. And the only success depends on me being present too. Being present to the conditions inside. So, in a sentence, why I don't like teachers, it's not about not liking, it's about I don't believe in teachers. Is that they don't know where I am at. They do not know what teaching to give me. I could say a bunch of words at them so they could get to know me and they could give their best shot, and that's all they can do. But I happen to actually be a bit of a complex person, and it doesn't I haven't had much success with people actually accurately gauging where I'm at and what I might need. Um, yeah, and even good teachers, they're going to project on you. They don't have the time, the energy, the desire to be with you. If y'all crashed on a desert island, they'd have all the time to attune to you. But you're a whole human being. They don't know what you need. And even that's a very complex question for you to answer, for God to answer what you need. So to me, the only way is to be yourself, is to be teacher and student, is to, even better than that, be the teaching, be the process of learning and teaching and simultaneously in your guts, in your soma. The grappling, the tension. That's what everything's about. Ram Dass said, "Every life experience is grist for the mill. Every experience, positive, negative, challenge. It's all the material from which change happens, life happens, evolution happens, beauty happens, success in any way you define it. There's no escaping that by receiving a teaching." Ooh, gotta sneeze. There's no escaping that. The soul has its unfolding. And that's invisible to anyone except for your own soul. And the best you can do is discover the connection to that. The gut, the intuition, the instincts. You might remember it from a kid. I do. I remember as a kid having a realization that, and I was about 10, I think. I was just about to lose connection with my intuition. This was one of the last times probably. But I remember tuning in with it. I remember thinking about it, and I remember that I had it more when I was younger. But I realized I know exactly what to do in every situation. I was really starting to develop an ego, 10 years old, which was mind based, which covered it up. And it was about decision making. And I remember thinking, like, I actually know what to do completely. I have every problem already solved before it presents itself. And that's intuition. We all have that. And that's instinct, too. The child knows that the adult is full of shit. The wise child, knows that the adult is a bullshitting animal. But the child has no choice, really. The pressure is too great because the world is run by adults. And survival pressure is very convincing. So the child willingly at some point breaks and covers up their knowing. So when following intuition, and this, by the way, this is the intuition that is alive at the tail end of a psychedelic trip, and maybe after, there's more access to it. I've heard people say don't make decisions after an expansive experience, like a transformational festival or a psychedelic trip. While I understand that, I completely disagree. From a self-preservation, survival, egoic perspective, yes, it's a nice conservative strategy. I still don't like how much people they emphasize it. It's very conservative. And then from a soul perspective, it's 100% the wrong advice. It's exactly 180 degrees from being correct. After transformational experience, like a big expansive festival, a psychedelic trip, these kind of things, you're more lucid. You're more lucid. You see clearer. What is the benefit of these things if not to give you that window with which to actually act and change your life? I am I can't even imagine what my life would be like without some of those decisions I made that I decided at the end of psychedelic trips. Ways I committed to change my life. To cut off a certain person to pursue a job. Those were the those were the correct decisions, and my life is totally different because of them. So that's intuition. Now, once you uncover your intuition a bit, not just after psychedelic trips, there's an option to follow it, or there's an option to have it guide you. And this is the way to be an autodidact. This is the way to self teach, especially when it comes to awakening work. There's a path being laid out by the soul. to find itself and go beyond itself. And it may look like not meditating. It may look like not doing what the Buddhists say to do. It might look like a lot of meditation. It might look like going into another country and doing a meditation retreat. It might look like watching a lot of YouTube videos. It might look like not watching any YouTube videos anymore. So, a really good sneeze. Meditation is like one of those masterful teachings that it's good. It's guaranteed to be successful. Um, that's how I see it anyway. I understand there's a lot of people who meditate who aren't awake. Um, that's sort of a more nuanced topic. Like, in a way, people who have meditated a lot, or like even monks, like that grew up in like a Buddhist culture, meditate. Like, they're still human beings. They may not actually be serious about awakening, for example. But rather, it's like they're just socialized into doing that as a thing, into making that into their life. Spiritual materialism, like Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche talked about. He was saying, as he's saying, it's like an epidemic, and most people into spirituality are not really. So meditation is one of those, and if you're not willing to follow your intuition, you should be meditating a whole fucking lot. You know, like that's what I believe. Because it works, and that's why there's so many schools that are like, just fucking do it. Yes, we're dogmatic, and this shit works. And when you go far enough, you're gonna let go of the dogma, or you won't. That's the thing. Like when you enter like a dogmatic tradition, and that's meditation based, it's kind of like understood. Yeah, you're gonna use the dogma to carry you far, and at some point you need to drop it, and you might not. It might be such a shadow for you that you don't. But even carrying the dogma would take you far. Whereas if one is like some fake autodidact, which you might just call a lazy person, then they'll and also if they're programmed with Western ideology, they might be very anti-dogma. If they're agnostic or atheist, Western individualist, they might be anti-dogma and just never start up on like a meditation-based path. So ultimately, the autodidactic path can be the most effective one if done well, if followed intuitively. If you have access to intuition, which great because that's rare. That's not the norm. And much more difficult is to actually follow it because it won't give you reasons to follow it. It won't give you reasons of why it's a good idea. It gives you no reasons, and it goes against common sense and conventional wisdom. And you can't. There's no predicting which way it'll go. You can't predict if it'll be anti-dogma, pro-dogma, anti-establishment. On the surface, it can go any direction. and there's no trend. It can switch directions like this. It can be like, oh, meditation, 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 and then no more meditation, or like that for something else. It can be vegan, 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 and it switches. And if your mind had created constructs around veganism being ideal, which of course it will, the ego will always create, like the mind will create structures that mimic whatever the intuition's telling it. Then when the intuition changes, and it will, the mind still has those structures. So the mind will always follow the intuition. The problem is that, and maybe that's probably beneficial, but the problem is that it doesn't turn on a dime. Intuition's like some kind of ice skater who could dash around, and then the mind that follows intuition is like the Zamboni that's cleaning the ice, that has really slow turns, can't change direction quickly. So having intuition, and then actually that being the primary guidance, and straight up dedicating your life to awakening, like, because that's what the intuition's gonna lead to. um, it's like deeper levels of unfolding of truth. It may not be direct to awakening, it can be direct to sort of unfolding your soul's potential, which is different than awakening. Awakening is like cutting right through your soul path too. Um, that's a nuanced topic. It's hard to talk about, and I don't fully understand how awakening and one's soul path, uh, how they relate. But it's an interesting area. The path of self-teaching, autodidactism, has a very thin margin of error. It's totally unforgiving. My intuition was opened up when I was 22, 23, and I started going against it. And I knew I was at the time, but I was so young and inexperienced in life that I just didn't know how intuition worked. I didn't know what the consequences would be. I didn't. And at the same time, I did. Or rather, the intuition did. There's zero mystery and zero surprise, zero confusion about what happened. The intuition didn't care how young or old I was, didn't care how naive or wise I was. It was there. My mind was just. I hadn't seen through my mind yet. I hadn't seen through my mind and what the mind really is. And to be clear, you don't have to see through shit. You just gotta do what intuition says. Do you have the karma to do that, or do you have the karma to fuck around and find out? So I fucked around and was compared to what had been happening and the rate of my evolution. I was pretty stagnant for the next many years, like 7 years. I learned a lot about life, about work, about personal development in some areas, for sure. And my potential was so much greater. It was more in the awakening direction. And so I pick it up later. So, just like that, you can get off track for years in life. Just like that. And suffer unnecessarily. pick up new traumas, new bad beliefs. So, if you have the temperament and the if you see through being taught, and it just won't work for you, then you'll be an autodidact, or you'll squander your life. Maybe, I don't know. I know that's judgmental. No one squanders anything. Everything's exactly the way it is, and you can squander your life too. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Because you have potential. You are potential. You are potential beyond what you can imagine, actually. You must be. Yeah, so if you're built to be an autodidact and you kind of have to be, then you will be. And if you're not and teachings work for you, excellent. Like, you'll need to put in a lot of effort and discipline, which you'll need to regardless. But if teachings work for you, then fuck yeah, rock those teachings.